What's up and welcome to Idle Insights, a show where each week I, Treavor Bettis, talk to interesting people about idle champions and Dungeons and Dragons. And joining me this week is returning guest Adam Bradford. Hello!
I didn't know that I was interesting, but
You
thank
are
you.
so interesting. Everyone that has that reaction, I'm just like, you are the most interesting. That's why you're on the show.
There we go. There we go. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Adam, if there are folks in the chat who don't know who are you for those fine folks who do not know?
I am Adam Bradford, and I am the Chief Development Officer. I always say that that's a made-up title. That just means that I do a lot of different things at Demiplane, and we, are out there making digital tools and digital companions for a lot of the great tabletop role-playing games in the space.
Heck yeah.
I also have previously played a character named Briv Steelmarrow that some of you might be familiar with. Yes.
Yes. I will say though, aren't I feel like all titles are just made up though.
Yeah,
like when you really get down to it.
It was weird. It was weird when I first started talking to the CEO and the CTO of Demiplane. My pals that I work with now. They were talking about titles, and I was like, I don't really care too much. Like I understand it's going to have a C in the front of it, and I was like, hit me with what you want to go with. And he comes back with Chief Development Officer, and I like start looking this up on Wikipedia and things, and it's like used in the construction industry for the most part. So it's apparently like something that
it's web construction.
You have executives out there like on these huge construction sites, and they're CDOs. And I was like, you know what, like that's fine. Let's go with it.
I love that. You literally got to pick your own title. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I do want to say for people who are asking in the chat, yes, we are live this week. If you have any questions for Adam, you can put them in the chat with question : and then your question, or also model grab them, put them in a little text doc that I will remember to open here in a moment and read later in the show. We'll also be doing a giveaway halfway through the show, so keep an ear out for that. But Adam, I want to start off with an icebreaker question like always. This one's going to be, tell me about the first time you DM'd.
Wow. Yeah, that is a really good one. So I'm going to take the question very specifically there.
Okay.
Because I'm gonna detour slightly and say that the first time that I ever ran a game, my introduction to tabletop RPGs was the West End game Star Wars game.
Oh.
Because I am deep in the Bible Belt, and this was right in the wake, the afterbirth of the Satanic Panic. And so Dungeons and Dragons was very, very faux pas, when I was a teenager even. And so for whatever reason, it was okay to use the Force instead of using, occult spells and stuff. And so,
well, you're fighting against the dark side, Adam.
That's it. And so played Star Wars, and actually the first time that I played, I just fell in love, hook, line, and sinker, loved it. And I literally 2 sessions later, they had like badgered me into running the game instead of playing. And so from there on, like I hardly got to play for decades. I had to always, GM, but specifically for dungeon mastering with D&D, it took a little while, probably a couple of years, for me to finally get old enough to be like, you know what, like these people who are making up these just completely made up rules about like you can't have fun playing a game like Dungeons and Dragons, I don't have to listen to them. And so when that started to finally come, it's actually when 3rd edition had just come out. So it was like I was seeing the player's handbook in Books a Million, like walking in there, and I'm looking at all the Star Wars books that I'm trying to find because they were really hard to find.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like looking for all that, and then all of a sudden I see like, wait, what is this? And those like skeuomorphic covers that they had that were like all like some kind of grimoire,
Yeah.
And I was like this is so cool. So bought that book with the little bit of money I had. I literally had to choose between tacos at Taco Casa, spending money on those, or spending money on the book, and I chose the book. And
Oh
then
my gosh.
so yeah, these are college decisions
As
that
a
you have to
Southern
make sometimes.
Californian, I'm like, oh, that was a tough decision.
Yeah, yeah, it was. And so, so I went home with that player's handbook, and then I actually didn't have a Dungeon Master's guide yet, and so I was having to just kind of guess on some of
Mm.
the gaps there or whatever. But we actually got all of the friends together that had been playing Star Wars, and we started playing D&D that night. And I remember that the great news is that since D&D really is the grandpappy of all these games, that this idea of, hey, I've been running games in this Star Wars completely different
Mhm.
system, but lots and lots of the principles are the same. And so I remember third edition kind of presented Greyhawk as the default setting, initially. It really got into the realms, after that. But I remember I was learning about so much about Greyhawk because I had played as a player
Mhm.
second edition AD&D. Probably a year before that, but it really was one of those things. It's kind of like when you discover an old franchise of a TV show, but then
Oh
you find
yeah.
out that the TV show's canceled and it doesn't end, and so it was like, oh, we're going to leave behind this AD&D stuff because that's not going anywhere. Well, then this new third edition came out, and I was just like, this is great, and so we jumped right on board with it. And I dungeon mastered for the first time, and I started off with first level. There were rats involved because that is a classic.
Oh yeah.
And someone almost died, and I had to do the DM fiat kind of to like make sure they didn't die
Yeah.
to the rats. But again, we were kind of fumbling through figuring it out. And I don't remember a ton of other details about it, but the thing that just always makes the impression is it really felt like, oh, wait a minute, this is this even broader, wider world than I thought it was, because
Mm.
I'd been playing Star Wars. I was like, this is great. I'm one of the biggest Star Wars fans in the world. I love this. But I was like, wait a minute, maybe it's not that I just love Star Wars. Maybe I love these kinds of games. And
Yeah.
that was the feeling that I came away with, and never looked back from there.
I gotta ask because I literally spent my lunch break playing Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection.
Yeah.
What do you remember at all? Like what the plot of that first Star Wars campaign you did
Yeah,
was?
yeah. So basically it was one of those, like sometimes in television, in the world of television, a showrunner gets fired in the middle of a season. Someone has so it's literally what happened is we started playing in this concept that the person that introduced me to
Okay.
role-playing games. We played two sessions, and I got to play, and I played Ryder Thorne, who was a space privateer. Okay, so he was like, he was legit, he was legitimized, and but he was Corellian.
Yeah.
He was very, very different than Han Solo because he used a blaster rifle instead of a pistol, and all those. But I'm like sitting there playing, and again just loving it. And then after those first couple of sessions, it was a situation where that person that introduced us, well, he couldn't get together. He was a little
Oh.
bit older, and he was unavailable compared to us kids
The
that were.
first enemy of the scheduling reorient
That's
there.
it. That's it. We saw it right away. And so he seriously said, "Well, Adam, I think you would be better at this than me anyway. Like, you should just do it, and then I'll join when I can." Because he was basically playing what I've discovered years and years later is one of the things that I hate the most, and it might just be because that's what I was exposed to first. But the dreaded GM PC, right? Where because
Uh
he was playing like a character that then shows up and like saved the day and basically kind of spoiled the spotlight for all the people
mm,
actually playing or whatever. And again, lots and lots of people do that. It's something that people don't even know is maybe not the
yeah.
best thing, especially back in those days. But like I remember, so he would show up occasionally because he was somehow this super powerful Jedi in the middle of the rebellion era that somehow Darth Vader didn't know about. And so he would like show up occasionally. But we started playing with the rest of them, and the whole idea was everybody was in prison when we started. So I'm sure Elder Scrolls, inspirations there. Everybody was in a prison. Our first thing, I broke, helped everybody break out of the prison in the first couple of sessions, and then all of a sudden we're on a ship. Well, then my PC, like I knew after those first couple of sessions, I was like, something's off with this. So I'm not gonna play a PC while I'm game mastering, and sent Ryder Thorn off into the the sunset, or
the binary sunset,
into the
yes.
sun, and then I started running it, and basically from there they were fugitives, trying to escape Imperial wrath. And so basically they decided, since they were already criminals, that they might as well lean into it. And so they started stealing things from Imperials. And so this was my first exposure to, hey, you're going to have to improvise. And like, so much of the time, player characters are not going to immediately jump into the thing that you spent hours preparing. And so, it was a thing where I really had to learn to kind of be prepared for those things. It's wild in those first couple of years of doing that through Star Wars, just how much I picked up on without teachers. There weren't streams in those days to be able to watch someone like Brennan Lee Mulligan or anything else like that. There wasn't anything like that. And so just, kind of finding your own way. And it really is. It's something that I just remember. I might not remember all those details, but I remember the impressions and the feelings going through that, because there was so much euphoria about that concept of, hey, the players just threw a curveball and I didn't strike out. I hit it over the fence, right? It's like, hey, because I responded with something that, again, in the end, that's where I learned in those first couple of years that it wasn't, about things always making sense. It wasn't about, making sure that the rules were interpreted, 100% accurately. It wasn't any of those things. It was whether the players were entertained and whether they were having fun.
So wild. This is like, it's what's wild to me about this is that literally I learned this same lesson as a GM from a different Star Wars game, Fantasy Flights. My friends, we were like, oh, we really want to play this. Treavor, you need to run this because you know the most out of all of us about Star Wars. And I was so cocky that I went in there. Don't get cocky, kid. I went in there and I was like, no, I have nothing planned. I have nothing prepped. You tell me where you want to start, and we will go. And not a single session until the last 3, I went in with 0 notes, and I'm like, we're just going to go. Okay, you guys want to go do a bounty? Yeah, this guy's off on lock. He's stolen some Mandalorian art. Like, just off the top of the dome. And that, perfect. and it is, that's so wild.
And again, and that's why even on the Dungeon Master's Guide, I love that with 5th edition, that was the subtitle on the back cover is talking about entertaining your players, because that over the years is the most rewarding thing that I've seen. And then again, as a player, because as I said, for decades, I pretty much didn't get to play. After I did this D&D Beyond thing, all of a sudden I enjoy a target-rich environment when it comes to people wanting to play with me. And so it's kind of like being a tank in World of Warcraft or something. You can always find a group. And so I definitely enjoy the pleasures other than responsibilities in life. If I have time to play, I can typically find someone to play with, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing, and I do not take that for granted. But I get to play a little bit more now. And I think that learning to run games has done so much for making me a better player. Because I think about it in terms of like, hey, I want to confirm for the DM that they are indeed entertaining me. And I want to give them enough, material that it's going to help them in their job to entertain as well. And so I think, and that's one of the reasons that in a lot of these streamed games, I play characters that are not like me personally, that are possibly challenging at times, and those kind of things, because it really is trying to put some stuff out there that other players and the game master, dungeon master can kind of play off of, to provide kind of a foil in a lot of those situations.
Yeah. Well, I got a good segue question here from chat. Lurking Rider says, silly question. Could Briv jump the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs?
He could do it so fast. I mean, yeah, in that distance. Yes, 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 yes. Yeah. No, like I think Briv would believe that he could.
Briv, yeah, 100%. Well, if folks are new to the game and they haven't been introduced to Briv yet, who is Briv?
Briv Steelmarrow is a character that it went through several pre-iterations before we actually played, but we had gotten as D&D Beyond was getting off the ground, we started to look at some streamed content, and at that time, I had brought Todd Kenrick onto the team, Lauren. Oboe Urban, that I'm sure you are all very familiar with. She had joined the team, and we wanted to put together a long-running stream and that would really highlight the D&D Beyond digital tool set. And what's interesting is, as that game went on, it highlighted it in the absolute best way, which was just super organically, that everyone was just using the tools as we were playing. And so I think that was the thing that was ended up being pretty special about that. But everybody made wonderful characters. I believe that all of them over the course of that time are now in Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms.
Yep.
We have everyone, even some of the later additions to the cast. We have everyone there, and so we've got you can get a complete set there. And Briv was an attempt, again, to be a little bit more of certainly uncouth, but be a character that was that would kind of get people in trouble and create some tension, but do so in a way that he that he really did have motivations for that, or possibly ignorance about why he was getting into those situations and those kind of things. And so and then one of the things that made him really click for me was, as we had gotten together for a couple of session zero kind of things, everyone was talking about their voice. And so there's this wonderful character that should be familiar to everyone, named Orkira. That so Lauren is going into this, and she's, I'm gonna talk like, and I can't do it like she does. But like the moment that I started hearing that, and Hope Lavelle, Penelope Half Pint, is and everybody's gonna be free, and just like all these, and I was sitting here thinking, I was like, what on earth is this character that is largely based off a mixture of Jane Cobb from Firefly and Thor Odinson in Marvel Comics? Like what is this character going to feel or act like? And I don't know why, but it was just one of those shower thoughts. I thought that it would be hilarious if he tried to speak in an old English accent and use thou art and thee and all of those kinds of things. And then I was like, well, no, I will never be able to pull that off, because clearly I can't talk. And then I was like, wait a minute, that actually might work better.
Yeah.
And I was like, so when he messes up, or when I mess up, it's pretty much just like he messed it up, and that seems like that would follow, and so yeah, it's basically kind of how all that came together. And so really for Briv, and I do absolutely think that Briv wore off on a lot of the cast members and players over time, because at the start of us playing, everyone else was playing things way straighter, and Briv was not at all. And Briv was just a complete bastion of chaos in those early days. And then ultimately by the time we got to 3 years of playing this really grand sweeping campaign in a couple of different iterations, as we got through kind of to the end of that huge campaign, so much chaos was happening at all times, and so Briv found himself very, very at home. But the idea with Briv that was so interesting is I've got this probably like some kind of complex where I don't like it when characters have heavy armor, and this might be because I have actually, like, my son does HEMA, historical
Oh,
European martial
okay.
arts, and so he literally sword fights and armor, and it's like I know too much now.
Mm. Well, I came back
And
before. Huh?
if anybody has ever, fallen off a boat, for instance, with heavy armor, like, they're probably dead unless someone's there to save them, right? Because it is like incredibly hard to,
Yeah.
and so that's the thing, is that so often when I play characters, I love the concept of a sword and board style warrior, but I like it more in the Viking bent,
Hmm.
that isn't wearing quite as much armor and stuff, at least as it's depicted in fantasy, right? And so when I was thinking about Briv, I was like, the problem with fifth edition mechanics is you got to wear armor, or otherwise you're just going to get tagged all the time. Ask
Yeah.
Lauren about that with Children of Airtech. So because Neb does not wear armor, and Neb gets hit all the time. But that's a choice, and she's
Yeah.
intentionally doing that, And but I was like, no, Briv is going to be on the front lines constantly. I've got to wear armor, and I was like, but I don't want to actually wear armor. And I was like, what if I had magical metal that could, be living in my bones, and it can, somehow come out through my pores and provide armor when I need it. And so, Todd Kenrick at the time, he's like, yeah, we can definitely make that work. It became an ability that Briv could use on a reaction. And so I think that was really, really cool, because even when he made his way to Idle Champions, that
Yep.
became a big part of how that worked. And I think it's such a cool thing that when he starts getting hit, he armors up. And a lot of the artwork that we had for Briv, it isn't quite the same in the Idle Champions animation, because
Hmm.
it's kind of like Venom. It's almost like a
Yeah.
symbiote, coming out and covering him in this liquid metal,
So
Terminator
you
2
you
style.
mixed Wolverine and Venom
Yeah,
together, and
yeah,
that's
that's
just
pretty much it.
badass.
Yeah, yeah, and so that was where his Steel Marrow clan name came from. That they were magically experimented on by Netherese mages, for centuries, and that's where he inherited that from. But yeah, it's that became a big sticking point. And then I was like, listen, if he can make this metal come out at will, there's no way in the world that he would not use that as a weapon. And so this is where his ultimate comes from. And there were abilities that I used in the tabletop role playing game the campaign that we played, where if I had lots of enemies around, he would just burst shards of
Hmm.
metal out from him, and those were some really epic moments while we were playing. And I love that the game represents that with his ult too.
It's awesome. And Briv is getting, or actually got a new skin, the Spelljammer skin.
Yeah,
Yeah, Lauren's got that up there on the screen. Look how cool that is.
yeah,
So
he looks really great.
what I wanted to ask with this, and I think Lauren, she also has it in the with the armor as well. But oh, and she
Oh,
got
there's
Flo in there.
Flo.
Hey, yay!
Watch her flow. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
so good. Oh, there
Oh,
we
yeah.
go.
There's that armor.
That's so badass.
Yeah. And
What
that
what?
was the thing. That's what I've loved about these skins. I'm sorry, I'm
Oh,
preempting a
no, no,
question
no,
here,
go
but
for it.
what I've loved about the skins and Idle Champions, because first of all, collecting things in games like this, it's just so great.
Hmm.
Love it. And I think that is the thing about all of these different skins is since he can shape that metal into whatever he wants, mentally. That's where it just gives so many different kinds of options when he's armoring up, and so I really do love that, and I love the artists at CNE are just absolutely kill it
Oh
every
yeah.
single time. The art style of the game is outstanding. I remember the very first time that I spoke to Eric Jordan was at everybody knows who that is around
I'm
here,
pretty
right?
sure.
Like the
I think most
CEO,
people do.
yes.
Yeah.
So Eric, want to make sure everybody in chat knows who I'm talking about. Eric, it was actually at they ended up calling them D&D Lives after that, but
Yeah.
this was the Stream of Annihilation. This was the
Mm.
very first one of these that Wizards of the Coast have done, and I met Eric in the green room or something, and he was like, I got introduced to him and said, this is Eric Jordan, Codename Entertainment. They're making a game, and he started telling me about the game, and he starts telling me about the game, and honestly I couldn't see it, right? Like
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, like I don't really know how that would be or how that would play. But then he was like, oh well, let me just, and he pulls out an iPad, and he starts, it might have been a laptop actually, because I doubt it was running on a tablet.
Yeah.
But he pulls out some small screen for me, and he starts showing me, and what I first saw was the art style, and I was like, oh wow, like
Mm-hmm.
this is something. And I fell in love with the art style from the very first conversation I had with him. And I remember telling him, I was like, hey, this is super evergreen. This is super flexible. This art approach that you're taking, and I really think that can be very successful. And it seems like that has proven out here.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's I just love how things look in the game. And again, when I am approached like, "Hey, we're going to do a new Briv skin," it's one of my most excited, because I'm like, "Wow, they really can pull off so much with this."
Oh yeah, absolutely. The art team just knocks out of the park every time. Like I consider myself so lucky that I can just I can open up a program and be like, what's the art team working on right now? And I can see
Yeah.
what upcoming skins are happening
Yeah,
and
can you
everything
give me
like that.
access to that?
So yeah, when we were doing the Zerixa stuff and getting into Spelljammer and getting to talk about what champions would look cool in some kind of sci-fi fantasy style. I mean, Briv, absolutely. Someone in the chat was saying it's got some Tron vibes to it.
Yeah.
I love when we can get these different kind of themes and aesthetics into it,
Yeah.
mixed with the team's art style.
Yeah, I do love it. And again, so what I really, really love about this is one of the inspirations that I talked with the artist about was Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow.
Oh my
Um,
god.
and so just something about that neo retro, because
Yeah.
neo retro is a word that describes a lot of what I like. And even on Demiplane, like one of our taglines that we use is digital tools for the analog soul.
Yeah.
And so that kind of concept really encapsulates a lot of what I like. And so when it was like, hey, Spelljammer, there is the chance to stretch into some sci-fi inspirations here. I knew that since Briv had the two different forms, the armored up form, I knew that I thought that it would be interesting to go a little bit more with that retro styling. So he has the
Mhm.
bomber jacket and the basically the cap that looks like Masters of the Air, if you've watched that show, that kind of thing going on. And then when he armors up, it kind of looks more full on Tron.
Love it. I mean, those are just two things that I find badass as hell, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Just want to give folks a heads up in a little bit here. We're gonna be doing a giveaway. Keep an eye out for the keyword in the chat, and whatever Gabe comes up with, you can put in there and enter for a chance to win 42 chests of your choice, excluding Bahamut chests. But while that they wait for that happening and put all those words in there. Has Briv had experience with a Spelljammer ship before?
Actually, so one of the things that we talked about is there was a point in the campaign where the characters had not been together for a 5 year period.
Mm-hmm.
And there are still things that we came up with for our characters that I'm pretty sure the rest of the cast doesn't even know about their characters. Like because we did not let anyone know because everyone had not seen anyone in game time for that 5 year period, and so we wanted it to kind of organically play out over time. And one of the things, Briv did several things in that 5 year period, and one of them was related to spell jamming, but that one happened off camera, so I won't
Okay.
dive into that too much. But we did absolutely have a stretch of the campaign where we were on a spelljammer craft, and it was very harrowing. Todd had a thing for illithids, and
Todd Kenrick?
yeah, and
No.
we ended, and honestly, as a player, they are one of the most dreaded things to me. And I'm talking about this like top to bottom. Like when I hear that a mind flayer is in the mix as a player of the game. Now, of course, I love running them because
Yeah.
they terrify players. But when you think about it as a player, both from a story perspective, they are so formidable, but when you look at it, even just purely mechanically, like Mind Blast and all the abilities that they have, they are one of the few creatures that can, in a turn or two, kill you.
Yeah.
And
And in
these are
terrible, terrible ways.
terrible ways, yeah. And especially if there's more than one, and they somehow group up on you, like it really can happen in
Yeah.
a round,
Yeah.
if you're very unlucky. And so mind flayers are really, really rough. And so we had some stuff going on with that. It was kind of tying into some of Freely's backstory. And we were on a spell jammer, and we were basically taking off, and the characters like learned about wild space and some of this stuff. Thankfully, we were able to commandeer the vessel and then make it back to the realms. And I can't quite remember if we were jumping around. I think it was back to Faerun and the
Mm-hmm.
Forgotten Realms at that point in time, but we were doing a lot of plane hopping then. And so but we didn't do like a full blown adventure out there, but there was this sense of desperation while we were on the craft that we were about to go somewhere that we didn't want to be, and we were going to be stranded in wild space. So that's Briv's things there. In the 5 year period, there was this little kind of subplot that he was abducted by mind
Oh
flayers,
my gosh.
and it was going to be this abduction thing. And basically it's one of the reasons. So when Briv came back from that 5 year period, this is also when they released a couple of feats in the game, and
Mm-hmm.
one of them was telepathic. That was the feat.
Oh yeah.
And so this is where Briv had all this exposure to a flump, trusty flow, but then also in that 5 year period had been abducted by mind flayers, and so he came back with the ability to telepathically
That's
communicate.
incredible.
And that's the reason. So if you actually watch the last parts of that campaign, that's the reason that he could communicate telepathically. This is where we get I get this gift thrown at me all the time where I'm like doing this with my temples and all that, but it's like but that's where that all came from.
Looks like
Briv had to try really hard
X-Men
to do it.
cartoon with
Yeah.
Professor X. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, that was it.
That's so dang cool. I love storytelling like that where like something will happen to a character and something that like they might not normally get. They get thrown in there extra. Like I had a player once who just like they just decided to take up cooking and stuff like that, and so eventually I'm like, here's the cooking feat. You just
Yeah.
get that. You just
I
get
love
that for
it.
free. I
I
love
love
that
it.
stuff.
That's a good DM. Yep.
So there was one other thing that I had about Spelljammer that I wanted to say. I wanted to ask, because like you were talking about like Sky Captain and Tron, stuff like that. Like, do you like a good mixture of sci-fi and fantasy? Like, does that aesthetic like hit you.
Yeah. It is certainly the sweet spot. And so, I think that what is really interesting is, if I moved my head right now and the blur filter, came off, you would see, that I am a fan of a lot of different things, and a fan of many things is the nickname
New
sometimes
magic
that
item coming this fall.
yeah, that's it. But basically with that, what is really interesting in my own personal, fandom journey, because I love being a fan. I think that passion is, if people are defining my life, I would love for the word passion to be right at the forefront of that. It's something that I appreciate. It's something that I just enjoy having, and I'm passionate about so many different things, and a lot of it is entertainment and media that is focused on storytelling, because I think storytelling is just the greatest thing that exists. And in that course, though, I came by that in such an odd way to me, because I also have a very relentless and focused personality. And so when I was a kid, after seeing Star Wars when I'm 5 years old,
Mm.
um, I was so obsessed with Star Wars back then. This would have been in, '86. So right after Return of the Jedi came to VHS. Um, there wasn't a way, like they had stopped making toys for the most part by that
Yeah.
time. There wasn't a way for me to truly be a fan of Star Wars. Well, when I get to be about 12, that is where digitally remastered in THX and like the black box set came out for Star Wars.
Yeah.
And this is, before I have access to the internet. So all of a sudden I'm hearing Leonard Maltin interviewing George Lucas, and George Lucas saying something about prequel movies. And I'm like, what did he just say? And I'm just like, just losing my mind as a 12-year-old. And this is also when they started coming out with some new action figures. So that is really what started for me a love affair with Star Wars that culminated in a time where I genuinely would have put my hat in as one of the biggest, most knowledgeable Star Wars fans in the world. I would have
Heck
gone toe to
yeah.
toe with anybody when I was, in my 20s. And this is when, I was a senior in high school about to graduate when episode one came out. And I was so into it that as episode one came out, episode two came out. I was married by that time that episode two came out. And I remember that I was so hardcore Star Wars fan that I was an apologist for those two movies, big
Oh,
time,
I was right
um,
there with you.
big time. And then honestly, what the irony of that to me is that I do think objectively Revenge of the Sith is the best made
Adam,
of those.
you and I are just such good friends.
But the thing, it was the straw that broke the camel's back for me, where, like, hey, you're telling me that I had a son when Revenge of the Sith came out, and he was very, very young.
Mhm.
And I was like, hey, I would have given you my son for free to film as Luke, instead of using those CG babies, right? And so it's like that kind of thing. It broke me.
Yeah.
And I do not mean to make light of this in any way, but to me, it felt, and I'm not going to say it felt like a divorce or anything, but there was an emotional break that happened where I just left Star Wars. Like, I was so just, rock bottom with Star Wars.
Mm.
But what I will say that's so interesting about that is that all that just huge wellspring of passion I was then able to distribute into. And so I don't think, if that had never
Oh.
happened for me, I would not have very soon after that picked up Battlestar Galactica. I would not have
Oh,
picked
that's
up
interesting.
Firefly. Like, there were just so many things that ended up being such a big deal for me. And so I would say that this is also when I started running some Spelljammer stuff. I was updating it for third edition, at that time. But it's like, all of that was such a big deal, to let me turn my head to the left or right. And then that has resulted in being the fan of many things now. And so I'm actually kind of grateful that I
Yeah.
went through that. But yeah, now if you've got something that has science fiction influences and injects fantasy into it, it is going to be something that I just completely geek out over. There is so much programming that has been, hitting that sweet spot with many things. It's even talking about, something like, Pathfinder, Starfinder. I like Starfinder better,
Mm.
because it's like that is the vibe that I'm looking for, is that space fantasy. And of course, there has been some really good Star Wars stuff after that, so I've been able to kind of reconcile and come back and love the Mandalorian first couple of seasons, and all those kind of things. Like so there really has been some great stuff, and I do consider myself a Star Wars fan now, but I would certainly say that I'm a fan of so many more things
Yeah.
now. And if you got something that hits those, checks those two boxes, there is a 100% chance that if I know about it, I'm going to check it out.
I love that. I love it. No, I get what you mean, because like I took like a break from Star Wars, probably like in the early like 2010s and stuff like that, and yeah, that's when I did start getting, that's when I got into D&D, that's when I got into all this other stuff, because it wasn't just all Star Wars all the time. And then I watched all of Clone Wars. I went, shit, I love this stuff.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's absolutely great. And I remember, I'm sure that as big of a fan as you are, you remember the Genndy Tartakovsky Clone
Oh,
Wars.
oh, you mean the one where General Grievous is the most terrifying thing on the face of the earth?
Yeah. And that feels like apocrypha at this point in time.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but I love it. So yeah, there really is so much to appreciate about it. But I am, like I said, I'm grateful that I was able to understand that, like, hey, this passion can be distributed,
Yeah.
and now it means that I have to keep up with a lot of things, but again, it's one of my favorite things to do. So I don't complain about that.
Heck yeah. All right. Well, we've actually been getting a bunch of questions during this, so we're
Okay.
gonna jump over that. I do want to say in this spot though, if you haven't checked out Demiplane yet, go open up another tab right now. Go to demiplane.com, start checking stuff out. It is one of my favorite sites for TTRPGs. I'm sure some things will come up in here about that, but I just want to put that plug in there to please go check that out.
Yeah.
Let's see. Lurking Writer says, question, where is Briv, as parentheses, after the events of Heroes of the Plains, Isle Champions presents the Black Pits, all that stuff? Essentially, do you have an idea in your head where Briv is at right now?
Yeah. We did, we genuinely did a kind of an epilogue type thing with that, and I don't think that he would move really from that spot, and that is, that he went back to Theros.
Mm-hmm.
So again, some plane hopping going on there. There was a giant statue of Briv that had been constructed there.
Getting that Jane stuff in there, I love it.
That's it, and so that is, genuinely the thing, is that with Briv, his quest, and he was not shy about this from the very start, is he wanted to become a god. Like he wanted, and that's one of the
Gotta
things.
Have goals.
Gotta have goals, and he wanted to become a god. And so in the end, he became a god, and so he, is basically the protector of that island. He lives a life like, a Hercules, or something of, just probably gluttony and, being, continuing to be his uncouth self. But yeah, he definitely comes, off the island when the need arises. And so, for instance, in one of the Idle Champions Presents, don't want to throw too many spoilers out there if people haven't watched that on VOD, but it's been a while since we played that one. So I think the statute of limitations is over. But, he, battles Tarrasques and stuff like that when the occasion calls for.
Just in case, a Tarrasque just suddenly appears over Asmodeus. I don't know. Who knows? Things are wild.
Or, when they appear in the middle of the Black Pits, don't know how that happens, but yeah.
Let's see. Seeker 30K says, question, is your experience with Star Wars why Briv looks like he just stepped off of Hoth?
Yeah, that is pretty funny. Like, yeah, in his typical thing, he's pretty shaggy. And he definitely, looks like he just likes to be comfortable, whether that's if he's too cold, wants to make sure he has some protection. So
Yeah. This is very appropriate for today, being Pi Day. Rough Rider 1995 says, question, what are Adam's and Briv's favorite pies?
very good questions. I would say for Adam, I mean, it's going to have to be a pizza pie if that applies, because I do actually like savory things better than sweet things.
I get you.
And that's not to say that I don't like to eat. I mean, like I will eat anything, but probably a pizza pie if that is applicable. But I will say that if we have to go with kind of your confections there, I would say that I love apples, and an
Oh
apple,
yeah.
like a really good apple pie is going to be my favorite thing. For Briv, I haven't given that a ton of thought, but I'm sure that for him, he had this like iron stomach.
Yeah.
He ate white meat. Several times during the show, and other kind of gruesome, gross things. And so I'm sure that it would be, one of those English, pot pie kind of creations
Oh
that
yeah.
probably has some kind of intestines from some strange animal in them, or, something disgusting would likely be his favorite.
I think that's a perfect answer for Briv. Let's see here. Um, well, I just, this is a Star Wars episode, so we're just gonna embrace it.
Yeah.
Lurking Writer says, follow-up question. Belief is a big part of the Force actually working, as proven by Yoda and Empire Strikes Back. So would Briv be allowed to join the Jedi Order, or would you have him pick up the ways of the Force via his own unique method?
Absolutely the latter there. Like there's no way in the world that he would be accepted. I mean, we would just go ahead and say too old for the training. Definitely that part first. But even if it was, kid Briv, there's no way they would see darkness in you, way too much in Briv, probably, because that was part of the journey for that character. Again, there certainly were aspects that were pretty two-dimensional, but when you play a character that long, it does typically evolve into more than that. And I think for Briv, there was just this constant savagery that was kind of just bubbling underneath the surface that he was actually keeping in check for the most part a lot of the time. So I think that it would have been really, really tough. But yeah, if we're talking, Star Wars terms, like the wonderful D20 Saga edition, we would say he's a Force adept, and he would find his own way.
All right, last question with the Star Wars stuff. Imaginal Disc says, question, is there, or no, that wasn't the one. I saw another one. Someone in there had, what would Briv's lightsaber color be? I thought it was Imaginal Disc, and I lost that one. What color would his lightsaber be?
I always love that question. And yeah, he would probably have kind of that, light blue teal. Like it would probably look very similar to what's on this Spelljammer skin, like the color of that light.
There we go.
It would be similar to that color right there. And I love in Star Wars. I just remember how wild it was. And again, the internet was just starting to get its legs at this point in time when the force.net started dropping, all these spoilers and stuff. And I remember the first
Gungans coming out of the mist.
Yeah. And I remember when they first leaked that Mace Windu was going to have a purple lightsaber, and it was like, wait a minute, they're only supposed to be blue and green and red and all that. And so I do love how things have opened up with that. So many wonderful Knights of the Old Republic and all these things that have expanded that. But there is just something that I have always loved about just that first time that I saw a lightsaber, in that wild cut in A New Hope when Luke almost puts his eye out or whatever, and he,
Yeah.
and especially in when I watched that initially, wasn't even called A New Hope when I watched it. That's how old I am.
Star Wars.
But yeah, when I watched that, it was for the most part white, and it certainly had like some almost a little more teal kind of
Yeah.
edges to it and everything. And so I definitely like something about how classic that feels to me.
I love that. Well, we gotta start wrapping things up because we got another show coming up after this. But thank you so much for taking time today to talk with me
Yeah.
about Briv and a lot of Star Wars. I really
Yeah.
this
Wasn't expecting that, but it's nice. It's like revisiting an old friend sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good.
If people wanted to find you and what you do on the interwebs, where could they do so?
Yeah, I'm on it's so hard to get used X and at Bad Eye Adam is really the only social platform I'm on at this point. You can join the Demiplane Discord. I certainly bounce around in there. We also have a channel in that Discord that over the years I've done these dev updates and community Q&A sessions on a weekly basis. We kind of shifted away from that at Demiplane recently, but that whole answering questions moment proved, lots and lots of requests for people to be able to continue to ask me questions. So on the Demiplane Discord server, there is a Bad Eye AMA channel that you can jump in and ask questions at any point. I jump in there and provide answers pretty frequently, and then every Tuesday at let me make sure I get this time zone right, at 1 p.m. Pacific. So on Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific, you can catch me for office hours, just some informal time that I stream in Discord there. You can come and ask questions like you used to with dev updates, and I do show and tell. So anything that we have, news stuff that we have going on with Demiplane, I do some show and tell there. So yeah, 1 p.m. Pacific, and then we have got we recently shared that Children of Erte, where I play Silas Sorrell in that. That is game mastered by the wonderful Deborah Ann Wall, and of course some other familiar people to you, like Lauren, are part of that cast. We have really told an incredible story these last few years, and we have announced that is coming to its natural conclusion here at the end of this month. So I believe it's March 29th is the last episode. And just, we have already filmed that. And so we know how it goes. We know that it's something else. We can't wait for you to watch it. So you can tune into that on Tuesdays for the next couple of weeks at 6 p.m. Pacific.
Heck yeah. Be sure to check out all those spaces. I'm actually probably going to jump into that Discord because I honestly just need another Discord server with a bunch of cool people.
Sounds great.
But that's going to do it for this week's episode of Island Sight. So until next week, take care of yourself.